back with Kim
and Jeanne Schumacher. How are you, Jeanne?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm good, and I'm excited to talk about all things plant-based and share a recipe today.
All right. What are you cooking today?
So today I'm making Ethiopian stew from the Plant Pure Nation cookbook, and I
Mm.
chose that recipe because last week you talked about one of your favorite food products being bear spice. So I thought I'd give people an idea of what you can do with it and then also use the Instant Pot. But it's not necessarily an Instant Pot recipe. You can use it in the crock pot, or you can do it on the stove top, whatever you want to do. But one thing I wanted to share with people that I do when I go to a cooking class or if I'm planning for the week is I consolidate all my ingredients. I get the spices, the onions, everything, and stick it in the refrigerator, store it off to the side, and anybody can cook the meal. And when my kids were little, I used to do this for them too. So it's really helpful if you're getting kids in the kitchen too. And it's already pre-chopped and they feel like they're
What a
cooking.
great idea.
Yeah. So this is it's a lentil-based soup, stew, whatever you want to call it. And it uses all green lentils, but this time I used half red lentils and half green. And here's why. Red lentils will really give it that smooth, creamy texture.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like my chilies and stews a little bit creamier. So we're going to stick those. These have all been pre-washed. So we're going to stick them right in the Instant Pot. I'm not going to pre-saute anything at this point. And then I have an onion already chopped up. You can use any kind of onion, a red onion, a white onion. You can cut it any way you like. I just have it diced. And the Instant Pot has a really nice liner that you can take it out. And I love this liner because the liner is very easy to keep clean.
Stainless steel.
You don't have to take your Instant Pot over to the counter. You can just take this as you're filling it. So I'm going to put that back in there, though. That's a really nice, handy thing. And then this recipe calls for a couple of cups of diced butternut squash. You can use sweet potatoes. You can use white potatoes. You can use any kind of root vegetable you want. I like butternut squash. It tends to dissolve a little bit when it cooks, but that's okay because it really adds to that nice creamy texture. Mm-hmm. It calls for some garlic, and because it's in the Instant Pot, I'm not even going to chop it. I'm just going to do that because it'll cook down and you won't even need to cut it. Bear spice.
My favorite.
Yeah, I think this one has a couple tablespoons. Oh, I have to double check because I tend to like things spicy. 1.5 tablespoons of bear I dump. So I make my own and I keep it in a mason jar because if you make your own, there's no salt in it.
Yeah, I got to make mine. I still haven't done that yet.
Yeah. And so that's it for more or less the dry and the produce. Then I put about 3 tablespoons of tomato paste.
Ah, okay.
And you can see I'm someone that likes to dump and pour. Do that a lot.
As we all. I like it. It's simple.
Ginger, and you're going to put about 2 tablespoons of ginger. I know what that looks like. I'm not a wild cook. And then a little bit of maple syrup, just a half a tablespoon. It just adds a little bit of sweetness to it. Mm-hmm. So we're going to put that in there.
Nice.
And then vegetable broth. 5 cups of vegetable broth.
Okay.
So pour that in. And here's a little trick with the Instant Pot. I heated up the vegetable broth, so it went in there warm, so it's going to take less time to bring it up to pressure. Because if I tell you it takes 15 minutes of pressure to cook, you need to add the amount of time that it takes to come up to pressure as well.
Could you use water there instead?
You absolutely could use water. And one of the things that I want to talk about making vegetable broth is if you take your scraps, this is a frozen bag of scraps. I don't know if you can see it. There's celery and carrots and onions and peppers, and keep it in the freezer. You can put this on the stove with some water, boil it. You can add an herb, and you can make your own veg broth and then just run it through a strainer. It's super easy to do. And this is a nice way to kind of keep your scraps from, just kind of recycle your scraps. So you're not throwing out a lot of produce.
Nice.
So then you're going to put the top on and you're going to line up your arrows. And this is the part that I'm coming at this from an angle, so bear with me. And then it sings a song when it's latched. You want to make sure you close the venting because you want it to come up to pressure. If you leave the vent open, it's going to, the steam's going to come out. It's not going to build up pressure. This you can see it does an awful lot of things. And the first time I got the Instant Pot, I was really overwhelmed with all the buttons. The only button I ever really use is the manual button. These are all preset, but I like to set them. I know how long it takes me to cook rice. I know how long it takes me to cook all my beans. And if you get an Instant Pot, they have a guide for it as well. So we're just going to go over here and we're going to hit manual. And I'm going to cook it for 15 minutes. But if I wanted to cook it for 20, I would just go up to 20 or down.
How did you get yours? Mine, when I hit manual, automatically comes to 30 minutes. Was yours set as default, or?
Mine comes to whatever I cooked before, and I happened to cook something at 15 minutes. That's what it came up as.
Not okay.
I don't know.
Well, I unplugged mine and plugged mine back in, so I don't know if it just goes back to default.
Well, yeah, I don't know. And then if you let's say you change your mind, it's turned on, it's ready to cook, but you say, oh, I don't want it at 15 minutes. I want it for 20. Some people just unplug it, it will reset. But if you just go down here to the red button, cancel it, you can start over again.
Okay.
So go to manual, but see, my manual keeps coming at 15, so I don't know what that's about. And then I'm done. That's all you have to do is set it. But all these other buttons are preset manuals. So do you use them, Jeanne?
I do. I use the one for rice and I use the one for beans.
Okay.
But I do use the manual mostly.
Yeah. I know that my rice is 23 minutes always, and I know that my beans are about 50 to 60 minutes, so I just set them and do it that way.
The one thing I don't like about this Instant Pot is that it won't, and I don't know if there is a way, maybe you know, to shut off after it's done cooking. I mean, it goes into the heat mode or warming mode.
The low mode. Yeah, I guess if you just turned it off, unplugged it, it would turn off.
I know, but I'm just thinking if I set it when I went to go to work and I just wanted it cooked and have it done when I come home.
Well, then here's what I think you need to do, and I haven't even tried to do it, but you can set the timer so it turns on, in 3 hours. So if you want it ready when you come home at 5 o'clock, you can set this so it will start at 3.
Well, the other idea I had was to put it on a manual timer. And just, like those plug-in things that click, 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 and just plug it into that and see, set it for 1 hour, and then it would shut it off, shut off electricity to it. So that was my other thought.
Yeah, you're supposed to be able to set it. I'm not a techie person, so I haven't
figured it out either. So
yeah.
Well, okay. So today, I know not everybody in your family is whole food plant-based, and I know mine is, I call them the carnivores. I mean, we've talked about that before, but
I have carnivores too.
Okay, so people that are not open to this way of eating, it can be stressful. It really can. So how do you handle family situations where these barbecues or social events, and do you have tips for sharing this? How do you handle this?
Yeah. Usually we take things with it. I mean, I bring a dish to pass if it's a barbecue, or if I go into my parents' house and they're cooking, I might bring something that we really enjoy. We eat around it. There's oftentimes when you go someplace, there's salads, there's side veggies, there's lots of things you can eat. Now, I don't know if they're oil-free, and, you can't always ask your guests if you can read the ingredients, the recipe. So, I guess I'm just more of a softer approach about it. I eat around the food, maybe eat before you go. And I don't really talk about our style of eating unless people really want to know and understand. Because to me, especially given what we do, if they're interested, they're going to ask. And oftentimes people do ask, but I'm not going to push my nutrition and my dietary beliefs on anybody unless they want the information. And it's surprisingly a lot of people do ask, and actually my family, they're very good about trying to cook plant-based for Nelson and I, which is nice. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. How do you handle it, Jeanne?
I like I call it the Gone with the Wind approach, because Mammy was trying to get Scarlett to eat, and shove food down her before she went to the picnic. And that's what I'm doing. I mean, as literally as we're driving in, pulling into the driveway, I'm eating.
Uh-huh.
because that way if I've got food right up to here, then I'm not tempted as much to eat, because and I know my family's going to have food that is going to tempt me, because if you put me and potato chips together in a room, I can't stop. I can't. And I know they're going to make me sick. I know. It's going to raise my blood pressure and make me sick
Hmm.
by the end of the night. So if I am so full, I have the better ability to be able to walk around it. And people have asked, about this, and I guess there's two ways of approaching it, and I call it the McDougall, way, and then the other one is Doug Lyle way, and I've used both at different times, but for the most part, because Doug Lyle says instead of trying to explain or defend it, because you're going to generate conversations, because people are always crazy about food, and especially with the paleo, there's so much confusion out there.
Right.
So instead of trying to explain it or defend it, he just basically says, well, it seems to be working for me.
Yeah, and you
And
know what? I'm familiar with Doug Lyle's approach to that, and actually, I couldn't agree more. That's exactly how I feel.
right.
Yeah.
But then there's people, I kind of like also what I call the McDougall approach, where you're in somebody's face, and because I get people that it's just, and sometimes it flips a switch, and it makes me turn into my um, jerk mode, and they're like, well, where do you get your protein from? And I'm like, my response, my knee jerk reaction is, do you even know how much protein you're supposed to have? Because we're on this kick of protein, protein, protein. Gotta have this protein, and so I just ask, do you even know? And most
Hmm.
people don't. They can't even answer.
Hmm.
And then I go into a discussion about how much protein, if you're consuming too much, that kind of thing. But and if they're asking, if they want to know legitimately, then I will certainly I'll give them my card, I'll give them my website, and share that information with them, because yeah, I don't want to turn it into it's supposed to be a social event, and I don't want to make it a lecture.
And that
So
also that becomes a sporting event too, because you know
yes,
somebody feels a little inferior or a little superior, and I think that this whole little dance goes on, and that's really what you don't want to get into.
well, and it's
'Cause
true.
you're
I
never
mean,
gonna win.
and especially when you get around family. I mean, all
Yes,
those family dynamics just come right out.
yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. You
Well,
know, I think too, I'm going to add one more thought to that,
oh,
is
please.
we always have to remember when we're with family or you're going out with people who are, carnivores, as you say, why you're there. You're there
Mhm.
because, to have, fun and enjoy the people and, your family. You're not there for the food, even though it feels like you're there for the food because of all the smells and the chips and stuff. But just remember, always remind yourself, I'm not here for the food. I'm not here to preach plant-based to people. So,
Well, and in the beginning, I used to bring lots of food. I would spend literally an entire day in the kitchen cooking what I thought was the absolute best of
right.
the plant-based, your recipes, my recipe. I mean, just really good food. And I would bring it to them, and they would spend half the time asking me what's in it, and and I would have to explain, and I felt very defensive about it. So now I just bring one dish, like a salad or something like that, and I bring my Italian dressing, your Italian dressing, your my favorite, and I will bring the Plant Pure Nation foods.
Hmm.
And what I've done is I bring those little
All the warming
the
trays.
warming trays, yeah, the mini hot logics. So I'll put those in a corner, and I'll start those cooking as soon as we get there. And then when everybody else sits down to eat, my husband and I will split one of those, and that's our dinner. And then I'll have salad, and then I usually bring a dessert. I make usually like the chocolate peanut butter pie, which everybody knows, loves,
That's,
and yeah, how could you not?
can't go wrong with
Yeah.
that.
So, and I bring that just to have a dessert, something there to defend myself, and from all the other desserts that are going to be there. So,
Hmm. But if you make a difference with one person, and
hmm
one person is suffering from some kind of a health ailment, and they feel like they can benefit from it, it's just that one person can make all the difference in the world.
plant those seeds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, let's get into I love this part. Our favorite processed foods.
Yeah.
So, why don't you start with one?
Okay. I actually had to run to the store because I typically get this at Trader Joe's. So
Okay.
Jean's
All
going to
right.
put up the nutritional information for, these are polenta rolls, I call them.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little different brand than what you're going to put up, because typically I get mine at Trader Joe's. They're shelf stable. Sometimes you can get them in the produce department. I love these because there are only like 2 or 3 ingredients in them. They're pretty simple.
Right.
One at Trader Joe's is organic. Do you use these, Jeanne?
I cannot, and let me tell you why. Because if you look at how much sodium is in those,
Uh-huh.
it's a little bit on the higher side,
It
and
is.
especially if you look at the serving,
Mhm.
how much, what's the calorie to sodium ratio?
Well, this package has 80 calories per serving, and the sodium is 290. So yeah, it's high.
Yeah,
It's like three
yeah.
times the
I mean,
amount.
if you're not salt sensitive, they're fantastic. I used to use them
Yeah.
until I realized how salt sensitive I was, and they're fantastic because you could just slice them and go.
Well,
And
I'll tell you what I use them for, and maybe the sodium is not as significant, because I like to make croutons with them. So,
oh,
just cut them into small, teeny, like little 1/2 to 1 inch
uh-huh,
squares, put them in a baggie, and mix them up with whatever seasonings you want. And you don't need to
right,
put salt in it because it's already obviously salty.
yeah,
So you could put a little bit of rosemary, nutritional yeast flakes, or basil, whatever you want. Shake them up, throw them on parchment paper, and put them in the oven, and they crisp up. They are the best little snacks, or the topping on a salad.
wow,
You can
okay.
you can make French fries with them too. So
Nice.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I've seen them with spices like, basil or dill in
Mhm.
them already. Um,
Mhm.
so that's something else to look for too. I mean,
And they're pretty low in calories,
they
which
are.
may explain why your sodium goes up. Because I mean, even if you ate this whole package, there's 320 calories. I wouldn't
Yeah.
eat the package, but just saying.
Right. No, no, no. Okay. Well, let me show you mine. We seem to be on a Trader Joe's theme here
I
today.
know.
This one's mine, corn and chili salsa,
Love that.
or excuse me, it's tomato-less salsa. And I really like this one a lot. And I use it when I make my Mexican lasagna in that, and I'll use the whole jar. And I started looking at the specs of that today, which, made me really stop and think about this. But in 2 tablespoons of this, there's 45 calories, but 85 milligrams of salt. So that's almost double the amount of salt. But usually I make this for my husband, so it's not as big a deal, because I usually don't eat this. But the sugar was a little bit high. So 2 tablespoons of this, it had 6 grams of sugar. So for
Was it
this,
added sugar, Jeanne, or is it just
it
sugar from the corn?
no, it is. They do add some sugar. In this jar here, there's what they call 11 servings. So that's in this jar itself, there's 66 grams of sugar. So I went, okay. But I use the jar and I use it on the Mexican lasagna. So that is 1/6 of that would be a serving. So that brings me back to 11 grams of sugar. So not as bad, especially because we don't consume sugar at all. We don't sweeten drinks with it. We're not, I usually don't cook with it, maybe just a splash of maple syrup here or there. So I'm
Right.
not, big on sugar. So for my husband, he's at normal weight, so we're good with that. So
Well, and
that's
when you're cooking with things like what you're describing, that I would put that at the condiment category. You don't really need to salt your meal, because you're going to get it from things like that. If you're making a casserole or a stew or whatever, and you're putting it in there, that's why I tell people salt at the very end, because you
right.
might be surprised that you don't even need it.
Oh no, not at all. This is really really tasty. So okay, what else? What do you got next?
Trader Joe's.
We're
We
on
have
a
a
theme.
Trader Joe's 20 minutes from us, so I feel bad for all of you who do not have a Trader Joe's nearby, but you can get some of this stuff at mainstream grocery stores. This is a black bean dip that I really like. Nelson and I like to snack while we're making dinner together, so oftentimes I'll have vegetables all
Uh-huh.
pre-cut. I make homemade tortillas at times. I love this. I love it for wraps. I love it for snacking. And I know what you're going to ask me, Jeanne.
You
What's the
know.
sodium? The sodium is, the calories are 35, and the sodium is, I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to come up on the screen because you'll share it. 200 milligrams. Yeah. So,
Ooh.
so here's what I would do with this. And I'm going to, now that I know this, I would just put straight tomatoes in this. You can
Hmm.
get fire roasted tomatoes and mix it in with the bean dip. You'll get something a little bit less thick.
Right.
I still think it would work, and it would reduce that sodium down quite a bit.
Right.
So,
Well, that was the other thing I was thinking about was for this was to add more corn, just regular plain corn, to this
mhm,
to thin it out,
exactly. That's a
to
great idea.
drop the sugar down. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
okay. Well, here's my last one, and again we're on that Trader Joe's theme. I love this. This is the tomato salsa,
Hmm.
and what is most happy, and I know you can't read this because it's backwards, but it says no salt added. So
Hmm.
this is a win-win for me. So the calories for this, for 2 tablespoons, is 10 calories, and the sodium is 20 milligrams.
That's good.
So yeah, so very, very little salt at all, and that's just natural salt that's already in the plants themselves. So I use this when I'm cooking a lot, especially if I'm making a chili. I'll
Mhm.
add this as my salt, as a salsa.
And a lot of people don't realize that if you put something like lime juice or lemon juice into a bean dip or a salsa or a little bit of vinegar, maybe not in a salsa, but it helps the flavors to pop
Hmm.
before you even have to add any salt.
Yes,
So, lime juice is a great thing to throw in Mexican dips and
yes.
sauces because
It's
it really
cilantro.
cilantro,
Mm,
right?
I love cilantro a lot.
This is, I don't know if you can see, but this is starting to put out a little bit of steam
Hmm.
because it's almost to pressure. So usually right before it comes to pressure, it starts to put out a little bit of steam and then it will stop. So I don't know
Okay.
if you see that in the screen, but thought I would
Thought you'd point that out.
point it out because it's getting noisy.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a new feature that we're adding to our show, and that is our favorite resources. So books, websites, blogs. So what's one of your favorites?
Plant Pure Nation. No,
Of
it's true.
course.
I always recommend that first because I can always hand people a movie. But one of the resources I really like is nutritionfacts.org. And I'll tell you why. There are so many topics that Dr. Michael Greger covers,
Yes, he
from
does.
breast cancer to heart disease to breastfeeding, anything, prostate cancer, and he does it in these little 2-minute segments for people who have attention deficit disorder, like most of America. So
Right.
I really nice because most people don't want to sit and watch a full-blown documentary
Well, and
or
he shows you the research.
shows you that it goes really fast. You've got to sometimes have to stop and
Right.
rewind over it, but it's free and you can join. And he sends
Mhm.
emails of all the newest videos that come out. So, and that's a nice one because you could just tell people, send them the link if they have a question about the diet and how it relates to a certain condition. You can usually send somebody a link, and it works. So that's my number one. What's yours, Jeanne?
My number one is Forks Over Knives,
Mm-hmm.
and that for me it was a life-changing movie for me, but also it really explains things in a very simplified way for the average person just starting this, and it's powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember my one of my best friends they've been married, my gosh, 40 years, and she said to me, my husband won't do this. And I said, well, let's show him the movie. She's like, I know my husband. We've been together for a long time. And I said, well, okay. So we sat down and she came over and her husband and we watched the movie together. And that very next day, he gave up dairy.
Wow.
Now he is somebody who drinks coffee like nonstop, and literally his coffee is a little bit of coffee and mostly milk.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave up that overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you could not, I couldn't have believed it. So, there is hope when people start to see, and unfortunately, most of us have to get sick at some point to understand how powerful it is and the changes that we need to make. So, but that's one of my go-tos, especially for somebody, just starting this out. I direct them there first. How about
Yeah.
you? What's next?
Well, I'm a foodie, so can I go into my food resources?
Of course.
So I love Plant Pure Nation, and I love Forks Over Knives, just like you. But as far as the food component, I really like a website called the Fat Free Vegan
Mm-hmm.
with
Yes, that's a good one.
Susan Voisin. She's very creative. She has a lot of recipes where she doesn't use any oil, so that's a really good place to start. And then the other one that I like, because they're short little videos and he has a nice sense of humor, is the Vegan Corner. Do you know about the Vegan Corner?
Yes, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
Excellent one.
Yeah, and it's if you're trying to get, I'm all about kids and family. So if you're trying to get your kids to do this, sometimes showing them a fun little video of something that they could actually make is a great way to kind of motivate them. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Plan Pure Nation is also, usually I recommend them together, especially when I'm doing my lectures. I do Forks Over Knives, and I talk about Plant Pure Nation, and then I talk about the pods and the groups and how it's a grassroots movement, and to me that's just absolutely amazing. People don't realize that there's those resources out there for the website on Plant Pure Nation. I mean, there's so many out there, and there's Plant Pure TV and just and on and on. So there's lots of resources there. But my other third favorite is a website, and I'm probably on it 3 or 4, if not 5 times a day. A minimum is drmcdougall.com.
Yes.
He's been doing newsletters for probably 40 years. And he can tell you, he was like, yeah, go back to March 2001, the first volume, and read my article on XYZ. And he knows it. He's like, the man is like, I've got a photographic memory. He's amazing.
And he does the little short videos as well, too.
He does. McDougall Moments. Yep. He has the McDougall Moments, and you can get those set up so that in your emails, he sends those as well.
Yeah. And it's a different style than what Dr. Greger does, because Dr. Greger has the research kind of fall down in front of you, and you can kind of bits and pieces here and there. But Dr. McDougall actually talks and shares his knowledge.
It's like a conversation, like you're having a conversation with him.
Yeah. And I like them both. They're just very different styles.
They are. They are. And he also has, honestly, you could literally spend weeks watching. He's got a lot of free e-lectures from he has these 3-day immersion weekends. And he takes a lot of those recordings and puts them up on his website for free. So those are absolutely amazing, amazing resources. And again, he also has, on every health topic that you could possibly imagine, research information about it. So you can search on that. And I just typically go up to the search bar on the top and type in whatever I'm looking for. And then, it comes back. And it usually has, he has a page, for example, if you type in protein, there's a whole page of listing all the links and everything that is related to protein. So
that's actually one of the very first websites that I was on a lot before Forks Over Knives even came out, and before the China study came out. And we were plant-based at the time, but that was a great resource. The McDougalls have been writing cookbooks and lecturing and writing articles for years and years. So
no, and Mary, oh my gosh, Mary's got I think there's about 2,000 recipes on that website.
Yeah, I think she's very gifted that way.
She is. And they have the McDougall app now as well. So on your phone. So what I like is if I need a recipe for an eggplant. I got an eggplant in my refrigerator and I want to use it up. And you can type in eggplant and it'll come up with 5 recipes with eggplant.
That's nice.
So it is. It's very nice. We have a new segment on our show called Favorite Time and Money Saving Tips. So give us your first one.
Well, I gave you my first one early on in the show, but it was basically the frozen vegetables that I put in the junk bag and make vegetable broth. But another tip I wanted to share with you, because a lot of people, and I'm going to talk about it from 2 angles. A lot of people don't want to heat up their food in the warming tray because of the plastics or whatever's on that. So I recommend if you're buying Plant Pure Nation food or any frozen food, that you put it in a nice Pyrex dish like this. It's a little bit of an investment, but you can put it in the warming tray. You can put the top on and heat it up. It's wonderful. But I use these to freeze things. So this recipe I'm doing right now, we're not going to eat it all tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in these. And I'll cool it down a little bit and put them in. I don't have to worry about plastic melting on it and all of that. And then I'll just stick it in the freezer. I think people are afraid to freeze in Pyrex dishes and glasses, but just make sure you give it enough space so you're not filling it right up to the top so the glass breaks. But you can even freeze in mason jars.
Right.
As long as you're putting the stew in and you're not filling it all the way up to the top, you shouldn't have any problem with breakage.
Well, what I like with that dish you just showed, you can put it right into the mini Hot Logic. And that's what I do.
It's in there perfectly.
Yep, exactly. Well, I actually found one that fits even better than that one because I noticed that one had a rounder bottom. I found one that's actually square and it's almost the same dimensions as the tray. So it's perfect.
And we use these. I mean, I put Nelson's leftovers in these. He takes them to work and pops them in the warming tray too. So go ahead and get, a half dozen to a dozen of these and just have them on hand. I
Yep.
know a lot of people, if you're just cooking for you and your husband or one person, you could just be packing away meals in your freezer. And there you have it. You don't have to hardly
Right.
plan a week out.
Well, one of my following along the same lines is I use these. These are just bell jars, ball jars, and so I'll use these. This is the what I put my steel cut oats in, and I batch cook. Actually, I just did that today, and batch cooked for the week. And I'll fill these up, and they stay in here. And I like, instead of the metal tops, I like these. These are the plastic tops. So, they go right into the dishwasher. So, but I love these. And I have a variety of sizes. So this is a little bit bigger. And then, of course, this one works great for soups and things like that. So I also use these a lot. These are just, Ziploc bags or the plastic containers. I don't put hot things in here and I don't cook things in here, but I prepare my salads and I'll put them into this dish and I prepare a week of salads. And so I line up 10 of these for my husband and I set up the salad. So, it's easy. We go in the morning when I'm packing lunch and food for the day. I'll just put them in there. Same thing for these. I'll usually, and I don't put hot things in here because I'm not real thrilled about putting things into the plastic that's hot or cooking in it. So I'm not going to cook in these. But to store like green beans or cucumbers or carrots, I'll put these in here and then I pack them in and then I take them in my cooler for the day because I take all my food with me.
Jeanne, do you ever, I'm going to interrupt you because you had those mason jars out. Do you ever make mason jar salads where you put the dressing on the bottom and then just kind of throw the carrots and the onions in and then you put the drier ingredients up on the top? Do you ever make those with the mason?
I have not. I like lettuce and, the crunch of the lettuce, I guess. So, and I usually use the romaine lettuce on the bottoms because they tend to stay very well.
Right.
So I use romaine and then I'll use shredded carrots. Then things that are not going to go bad very easily. Usually like some kind of sprouts or something on top, and it's the small like cherry tomatoes. I'll put some of those in. I don't put carrot or cucumbers, things like that, because they go so quick.
They do.
But things like that I'll put in there that work really well. So, do you have another tip?
I have one other tip. I have nothing to show, but behind me, you can see I have a chalkboard in my kitchen, and I keep a chalkboard marker, and I'm always writing everything down. That how you run out of dill, and then you get to the grocery store. You're never going to remember. But if you keep a running list of everything that you're running out of, you're not going to get to the store and overbuy or forget. And then I take a picture with my camera, and that's
okay. Well, I got one even better for you than the chalkboard. They have these apps that have a shopping list. So you can click on it, and they have so I set it up for like Trader Joe's, set it up for, the different stores that I go to. So if I remember, I know there's certain things that I can only get at Trader Joe's. So if I'm out of that, then I'll add it to the Trader Joe's list. So when I'm in the store, you can open it up, and there's your shopping list.
Oh, do share the name of that app. I would love
I'll have to find it because I forget the names of them.
I take pictures of everything, it seems like. Cause,
yeah.
I go to someone's house, there's a great recipe. I take a picture of the recipe and pictures of the grocery list. So your camera, if you have it, or your phone, if you have a smartphone, it's just a great little.
It is. It's a great thing. My last tip is when I'm cooking, and a lot of times when I'm batch cooking, I will be running around the kitchen trying to, getting this recipe, getting this ingredient, getting that ingredient, and getting this one. And that. What I do now is I just get everything out. I go through the recipe and find all the stuff because eventually, at some point, I'm going to find a recipe and go that I thought I had everything for, and I'm like, honey, could you pop down to the store and get this for me? Because then I can give him a list. And he can go in and get whatever I need, and I can start on another recipe. But at least I know that I have everything out in front of me, and it's right there. That is huge for me because I'm all the time looking for something, trying to find this spice, and you're in the middle, and it's boiling, and, it needs to be done at that point. So instead of spending 10 minutes or finding out you're at that point and going, ooh, I ran out of that.
And it saves so much time. I mean, running back and forth from the pantry
I
to the
know.
refrigerator to the
I know.
island. It took me, well, it took me writing a cookbook and having to do 12 to 14 recipes a day. I would literally have those little bags ready to go, but just having everything out, because
Oh,
then you know exactly what you have and what's missing.
right. Right.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Well, several of the people in my groups, I know that we're doing these shows together now, and so they wanted to know, what is your favorite recipes from your books?
Yeah, it's interesting. I cook so many different recipes, and I'm always in the recipe development mode. So we have a lot of variety here. So I'm going to step it back to when the kids were young and I was working full time and busy. And a lot of the recipes in the Plant Pure Nation book came from that time of my life. So I would say we did a lot of Mexican dinners, burritos, enchiladas. We did lasagna. That was a really popular recipe in our house. Eggplant parmesan. And one other thing I love to do, and I think Nelson and I do it every week, is we make burgers. I make plant-based burgers, and the new cookbook has more burger recipes. My favorite burger recipe is the garden green burger.
Hmm.
There's just so much in it, and it's just packed with vegetables and great flavors. And then when we have a burger, I take some potatoes, sweet potatoes or white potatoes, whatever I have, and I roast those up, and we have a salad. Really simple.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, they had another question for you. Do you have any other, apart from your own, do you have any other favorite cookbooks that you really like,
I
that is your
do.
favorite, or websites that you really like in particular?
Yeah, I do. And I have a lot of websites, so I can't really say pick one over the other, but I did pick some cookbooks, and I have a sickness, right? I have a whole shelf, two
Yes.
shelves full of cookbooks. So it's
No,
a lot of
I'm
fun.
with you.
But one cookbook that I use quite a bit because of the Instant Pot, and I was trying to learn how to use it, and she has great videos out, is OMG Good Instant Pot. This is Jill McKeever's cookbook,
Oh,
and
nice.
I love her website because if you're really wanting to learn and visually see how to do something, she does videos. This is a really short, small book, but it's all Instant Pot recipes. I really like that book. Do we want to take turns? Do you want to share some of your books
No,
or?
I didn't plan any, so because they were
Okay.
asking you.
Okay. And
Nobody wants to know about mine, so
another one
go.
I really like is Plant Powered Families. I
That is a
love.
good one. I have that one.
This is a
Yeah.
really good book, and Drina Burton does not use any oils. I think she minimizes sugars too. Her recipes are real healthy. Just really love it, and it's kid friendly. And
Hmm.
she's written a ton of books. I don't know how many, maybe 5, 6, something like that. I'm sorry, my Instant Pot is going off. I
It's not
have
going to
two.
explode, right?
No, it's not going to explode. It means it's done, and what's going to happen is it's going to automatically go down to the warming mode. So I'll release the pressure in a minute. But another cookbook, and this one is not, it's plant-based, but it's not oil-free. So you have to modify recipes to, take the fat out. But I've never had a problem with it. But Isa Chandra Moskowitz,
Yes, 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 yes.
she is a very talented chef. As far as flavors, this girl has it going. I have all of her cookbooks, and I really enjoy them, and they're super easy to modify. So that's another one. And there's just one more. We could
Just
be here all
one.
night. I could talk about cookbooks, but there's one by Christy Turner, but I could never go vegan. And again, it's not oil free,
Hmm.
but it's easy to modify. And I think
Right.
a lot of people, as they go whole food plant based and they want to cut out the oil, that's wonderful. You should do that, but it doesn't mean you can't look at all these other resources out there. You can get creative, and you can find substitutes for oil. If you're baking, you can use applesauce, banana, sweet potatoes. You can dry saute. The dressings are a little bit harder, but you probably don't have a problem either.
No,
Substitute.
and actually, my mother gave me several cookbooks when I first got married, and in using those cookbooks, obviously they're not whole food plant based, but I take some of the recipes and then I make them whole food plant based because I've gotten to the point where I can substitute and I know how to make that now and how to do that. So I can take standard recipes, and she also took this little cookbook I've got from her, and it was all the family recipes.
Hmm.
And of course, none of them, they're all big into oil and butter and lots of sugar. But so I've taken and modified some of these things. One of them, it was a date nut bread in our family, so I've been able to modify that. So
Hmm.
yeah, it can be done. So you can even use regulars.
I think that we should take a recipe one week coming up, and we should take a traditional standard
Yes.
American recipe and make it plant-based and vegan and healthy.
All right. You
Fun.
pick one and I'll pick one.
And then we'll talk about how we would do it. So
Right.
that would be
I
fun.
think that's another feature.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is this is on the valve is closed.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna vent it. So I'm gonna just move this little nozzle to the right,
Okay.
releasing pressure. It's already some of the pressures naturally come down, but it's already releasing pressure. You cannot open this. A lot of people are afraid of electric pressure cookers because they're afraid they're going to blow up in the kitchen. This is very safe. You can't open it. It's locked. It won't open until the pressure comes down completely. So that'll take about 3 to 5 minutes for the pressure to come out. The more liquid you have in there, the longer it takes to release.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that when I first got it. I remember doing potatoes and filling up, half the pot with potatoes and then putting the potatoes in. And it seemed to never stop releasing. So the more liquid you have in there, the more time it takes.
And one thing that I've found sometimes is sometimes the liquid starts to come out as I've released. So I have to shut it off and let it cool down for a little bit more, and then I release it again. So I have found sometimes the liquid comes out if I put in too much, and it's close to the top.
Do you use your Instant Pot a lot, Jeanne? Or
On the weekends, when I'm batch cooking, I batch cook. I make the rice, I make the beans, I make some kind of potato. I cook my potatoes whole, and I just keep them in the refrigerator so I can pull them out, and I'll use them in a different recipe. So, or if I just need a quick, I've been making potato chips of late, so I just take a cooked potato and I slice the potatoes as thin as I can get them, and then I'll put them on a tray in my toaster oven, and I'll put them through 2 cycles of toast, and I've got potato chips.
That's nice.
So that's one of my favorite go-tos, especially if I'm I come home and I'm really, really hungry and I just need something very quick right away just to take the edge off until, I
There've been
make
a lot
dinner.
of people talking about the air fryer. And part of me is, I keep wondering if I should get one, but I have a convection oven. So I really feel like my oven would probably it's a wonderful oven, do the same thing. Yeah. So you don't have an air fryer, so we won't have that discussion because I don't know much about it.
Well, I've been thinking about getting one. And again, I've been thinking about that, but it's like, oh my God, another gadget in the kitchen? Do I really need that?
Well, that's the thing. You got to find space for all. And then you're not really using it, spending money. We have more kitchen appliances from the time, we've been married 30 years, and we probably have 30 appliances that we don't use. So.
And that could be another for another episode is appliances we don't use much.
Yes.
So
but this one I use this a lot. I use it every day, and I have 2 of them. I love to take them to cooking classes. They're great to bring to a dish to pass. And I don't work for Instant Pot. I feel like I do sometimes. Great advertisement for Instant
Well, I've actually been thinking about buying another one because I use it because when I'm cooking on the weekends, I just you're cooking with this and you can't you're waiting for that to cook, and then you want to start cooking something else. So I was actually thinking about getting another one too. So.
And I like to make yogurt from this too. So that's why I have 2, because a lot of times there's one going with the yogurt in it, because I like to make soy yogurt. Okay. And I use it for cooking and dressings and things. All right. So the steam has completely come off, and it should. Yeah, it opens so you can hear that little, and then you just set it like that. And ooh, it's done. It's beautiful. This is really kind of thick. I don't know if Jeanne, if we're going to be able to.
Maybe just pull a dish and
that's
put
what
them
I'm
in a
going to
dish.
do. That's what I'm going to do. And this is
how handy. You've got your dish right there.
You could kind of see.
Oh my God, that looks fantastic.
It smells delicious. Now, there's 2 things. I didn't put any salt in it because I'll probably salt it before I eat it. And then I didn't put any spinach in it. You could put a frozen bag of spinach in there right now, and it'll just thaw really nicely. But I'm probably going to freeze this, and this freezes really nicely.
Nice.
We made Ethiopian stew for I think our second or third Jumpstart, and it was really popular. People liked it a lot. Very easy to make, very economical, and healthy.
Excellent. Well, there was that plant-based trucker who did a lot of things in his Instant Pot, and that's how he lost all that weight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, his is an interesting story. He actually broke his leg and wasn't able to work for a while. One of the ladies in our pod actually sent him Plant Pure Nation food. So,
very nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Kim, I think that's it for this week.
That's great, Jeanne. Well, I'm looking forward to another day of plant-based treasures and information, and we'll reconvene again soon.
All right.